everybody, and welcome to episode 11 of the Bao Podcast. Today, our guest is Jérôme Constant. Jérôme is managing partner of Rise PropTech Fund, a venture capital fund dedicated to late seed and Series A. They are active in the PropTech sector, and they invest in companies that have the ambition and the potential to change the construction and real estate industry in Europe. Recently, they made their first investment in the company LEKO Labs. I'm very curious today to get to know more about you and Rise PropTech Fund, so let's get into it. Welcome, Jérôme. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation.
Wonderful that you wanted to make some time. I think we just start at the beginning. Where did the idea for Rise PropTech Fund come from, and how long have you been active?
The idea arrived in 2019 when some of our partners, because we are 3 partners at Rise PropTech, some of our partners came back from the MIPIM in Cannes, and they were totally disappointed by the lack of innovation during the MIPIM. So they start to think about it, and then we meet a few years ago to start discussion to potentially do something to sustain the innovation on the PropTech market. And then after some surveys, some analysis, we launched the fund last year in June.
Okay, and so that's actually last year, that's 2021, so that's quite quickly, no? Between the idea and the starting of a fund?
It took more or less 12 months to really define the philosophy, the vision and the strategy of the fund, and also a few months to convince the first investor, because the first investor below the Rise PropTech Fund, the 2 main co-founders, if I can say like that, are Finance Brussels and Noshak. Mm-hmm. And then we decide with their support to attract new investors.
And what is the vision? What is the strategy behind Rise PropTech?
The strategy and the vision below and behind the fund is definitively to find innovative solution tackling problems in the construction and in the real estate sector. But when we are looking solution, we are not looking disruptive solution. We were in contact, for example, with some startup, very interesting solution, mixing blockchain in the metaverse. But we definitively believe that even if there is a market in the future, first we need to find innovation that will be able to solve real life problem in short term in the sector. So we are looking what we call pragmatic solution. Of course, not coming from big companies or from PME, but coming from the startup world.
Okay, so pragmatic means it's easy to implement in the short term, or is it because the blockchain and the metaverse things, it's very hot right now? But indeed, I would also not define that as very pragmatic. So it's like things that are already easy, like it's ready to be implemented into the market, or it solves an actual construction problem.
So like I said, definitively, if it's too innovative and it's too long-term, we are not looking at it for the moment, maybe in the future. We are definitively looking solution in some type of sector answering real problem, real life problem. So we are looking artificial intelligence solution, we are looking big data solution, we are looking sustainability solution. The sustainability is really, really important for us. It's the reason also why we invest in LEKO Labs, our first investment, but I presume we will talk about it later. And we are also looking not only technological solution, we are also looking solution answering problem of the sector, like I said. So like, for example, we are looking property management solution, we are looking design and process tools, we are looking resource efficiency solutions, but again, solution answering problem short or mid-term, because the objective of the fund is first, of course, to have a return for our LPs, but also to be able to change the way the market is working today.
Okay, that's clear. You already mentioned it, LEKO Labs, the first investment you did. What's the real problem that they're trying to solve?
Alors, LEKO Labs, it's a startup based in Luxembourg, We invest in LEKO Labs a few weeks ago, so it was in the beginning of February. We invest with Microsoft Climate Fund. We invest with Tencent. We invest with 2150 and some other funds. We were very interested by the solution developed by this company due to the fact that they tackle different things. The first thing they try to tackle is to change the impact of the concrete. Concrete, it's one of the most component creating pollution on the world. And what they do, in fact, they change the wall of a house, of a building, with a wood solution. It's a prefab solution, so they tackle another problem. And it's designed by an artificial intelligence, and built by robots. So definitively, they try to solve a short-term problem, the pollution, with a long-term vision product sustained by robot and artificial intelligence. And it's totally in line with the philosophy of the fund because they tackle a sustainability problem, they tackle a construction and tech process problem, and they tackle also the resource efficiency. So definitively, we are very, very happy to be part of this round.
Mm-hmm. And the solution itself that they make, it's like cross-laminated timber, but it's like the next level of cross-laminated timber.
Absolutely.
Produced fully automatic.
It's a sort of CLT, but much more lighter, than the CLT. You can see if you go to the website, it's some part of the walls are empty, and stronger than the concrete. They receive a lot of certificates. They have a lot of IP and different type of IP on the solution. And what is also really interesting, it's thinner. The walls are thinner than normal wall in concrete. So you have more space to live for the same price. That's really interesting.
And less mass.
Absolutely.
Which is easier for transportation and...
Yeah.
Okay. And they produce everything themselves? They have their own factories?
Yes, they have their own factory based in Luxembourg. And the objective now with the fundraising, it will be to create a second factory in midterm in another country, when they will decide to tackle, for example, the north of Europe. But first, they will increase the capacity of the factory in Luxembourg.
Fascinating. I think it's a key element to make construction more sustainable is indeed to lower our dependence on concrete.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah.
Because I read this book about from Bill Gates a couple of months ago, where he very clearly analyzes the biggest polluters, and concrete is, as you mentioned, very high on that list. But then he also tried to explain the technical problems by trying to make it sustainable, and it seems to be almost impossible on a chemical level to make concrete that's not very CO2 polluting. So I think these wooden alternatives are very promising for sure. Yeah.
Yes, and definitively LEKO Labs, it's not greenwashing. It's a real sustainable solution. And like I said, solving and answering a real short-term problem of the market. But the objective is not for us to find only solution replacing concrete, because we are in contact with potential startup working on new type of concrete. I can of course not mention the name for the moment, but definitively there are a lot of possible solutions to make the concrete much more greener than today.
Mm-hmm. For the fund itself, how can you participate in it? Is it minimum size of the parties who can invest in it? Can you invest in it as a person? How does that work?
Regarding the people below Rise PropTech?
Yes.
That's quite clear, and we have a unique positioning. In fact, our LPs or investors are coming mainly from the market.
Mm-hmm.
So we are backed by institutional players, like for example Finance Brussels, Sandra Invest or Noshak, but the majority of the investors are coming from the construction sector or from the real estate sector, or they have connection if they are some private office or private family. So for example, behind us, we have the Neys, we have the Cordel Group, we have Eloi, we have Muri, we have Balto, we have the family Knopf. So definitively we are smart money. We have people below us and behind us, having a real knowledge of the market. And so it's a real added value for us when we are doing some due diligence. We are directly in contact with these people, helping us to find if it's a relevant or not solution.
Mm-hmm.
And so no, the fund is not it's not open to everybody. Definitively, we raise more than 20 million up to now. We are continuing to raise money. We have some potential investor knocking on the door, so that's nice for us. But we are looking people bringing not only money, but bringing also added value, sharing, of course, the philosophy of the fund, and able to accelerate the company in which one we will decide to invest. It's a circular model, in fact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can imagine as a startup, and you get an investor where they are maybe 20, or for today it's 15?
We have more or less 17 LPs.
17, but it can continue to increase.
Yes.
So you get an investment, but you also get access to maybe in the future dozens of potential clients as well.
Absolutely. That's the agreement that we have with our LPs. Definitively, when we make an investment, they will try to use the solution in which one we decide to invest. So it increases in very short term the potential market of this startup. And they receive also very directly feedback from our investor. So it's an enrichment for them. And for example, we are also a quite open VC. That's the feedback we receive from the market, not only from the startup or for the potential investor, or even from some other VC. We receive, of course, a lot of files. Very few are in line with what we are looking for from a financial point of view, but from time to time we have some nice solution, interesting solution, and we know what are the strategic priorities of our LPs. So if it's not a file interesting from the fund from a financial perspective, it could be a file interesting for a commercial collaboration with one of our LPs. So we connect this startup with our LPs, and then if they are interested, they start to work together.
Okay. So maybe if as a startup you reach out, you maybe not get an investment, but you could go away with great commercial contact.
Absolutely.
Sounds too good to be true almost.
No, I can give you some reference if you want.
Okay. So you launched a year ago.
In
roughly.
June 21, yes.
Less than a year ago. It all sounds to be going great. Are there any, what are the biggest challenges you're facing right now? Are there any things that you look at like, okay, that's the main hurdle that we need to take now?
The biggest challenge for us is to find quality. There are more than 3,500 startups in the PropTech sector in Europe. And the most difficult for us is really to find companies answering, of course, all our criteria, but not only a financial criteria, the quality of the team, the quality of the solution, the size of the market. You have a lot of startups having nice idea, nice solution, but definitively they are in a red ocean, so it's not interesting for us. So that's our biggest challenge, is to really find the startup.
What do you mean with, maybe for the listeners, a red ocean? It's blue and red ocean,
yeah.
But maybe explain that a bit more.
A red ocean, it's quite simple. It's when you have a lot of competitors.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you're looking for solutions that are unique in the market?
No, not especially unique, but at least with a lot of differentiator and a lot of USP compared to the competitors.
Okay. Yeah. That's a bit like Peter Thiel, like his book 0 to 1, that he always says, like, try to create your own market. Like competition is, I think he says competition is for losers or something. He puts it a bit blunt, but if you make something that indeed is so unique to what you're doing, it has also downsides because you need to educate your market. But of course, the positive is that you have almost no competition.
I don't believe that you can educate the market. The market is always enough mature, and it's always the market having the final decision. But when you look a unique solution, even if it's a unique solution, you have competitors. LEKO Labs, it's quite unique, but they have competitors in the concrete. They have competitors in the wood. So they have all types of competitors. And it's better to have competitors because it's force you to improve you, to always change the way you work and to ask the right question.
Indeed. It's the same with us. Like, we don't have a direct competitor. There's no one else who does something similar as the SAM, but there are prefab bathrooms. And the biggest competitor for us is still the traditional way of installing utilities that gets done day in and day out all across Europe and the world. So it's true. Okay, so it started at MIPIM in 2019. Did you go to MIPIM last week?
Yes.
Did you see progress?
No.
Really? It's that bad?
No. 17,000 people. But still, if I can say like that, still the old way of working, still nice project, but very few innovation. You had the propel station part at the MIPIM with what they said 70 innovation. Honestly, the majority was not new, was not so innovative. And it's pity, and we discussed it with the organizer, because we said you had a lot of people coming from the construction, from the real estate. You have in Europe, like I said, more than 3,000 startups. Why don't you try to match all these two worlds? And in fact, I discussed with some startups. They say it's too expensive for us to be there, and they were quite disappointed because they would like to share their solution. They would like to make a show and to demo to all these people coming from the real estate and the construction, because the majority of the people would like to change the way of working. But if you are not able to match and to give the opportunity or to create meeting and contact between all these people, that's quite pity. So no, we were a little bit disappointed by the innovation part.
Yeah, I've never been to MIPIM. I wanted to go in 2020. I actually booked a ticket. Yeah, that didn't happen. But it's true. I booked a ticket to go there myself, and then there was a startup ticket, which was still quite expensive. But I didn't even look at how much it would cost to put like a SAM, for example, there, drive it over there, install it, and then like do sales for a whole week, which would be great. But there's no way. Just it's very expensive. It's true. It's a missed opportunity if you think about it.
Definitely, it's a missed opportunity, and they think to change the approach. Because like I said, you have so much people coming from the sector. The sector is busy to change the mindset. So just try to give the opportunity for these people to not only make the normal networking. It was super to have networking with all the players, but it was, yes, there was a lack regarding innovation. And on the other side, you have some famous event in Europe regarding PropTech event, where it's quite accessible for startup, but you have finally very few people from the industry coming and visiting this event. So yes, it's a missed opportunity for the moment, but maybe they will change in the future.
Let's hope so. Why do you think it has taken so long for like the construction industry to really embrace change and innovation? Like, you see it starting to happen now, but from my perspective, it's all happening a bit too late to start with. The challenges are so enormous, and even now still it takes very long to really get embraced and to scale up. If you compare it, for example, with software or with even the car industry, see what happened there in the last 10 years or is happening right now. Do you have any ideas why that is the case? And how do you see that changing in the future?
Before launching and managing Rise PropTech Fund, I had various previous life in the corporate world, in the construction industry, but also in the IT and also in the telecom. So when I arrived in the construction, it was quite a surprise for me, yes, indeed, to see the slowness, especially when I was working in the telecom. But I can understand, because the margin for the construction part, the margin are so low that if you decide to make an innovation, you take a huge risk. You take a risk, a potential risk, a financial risk, but you take another potential risk. It's a delay for the project. And on the real estate part, I think that up to now, the majority of the solution were proposed to the real estate, much more for the financing of a project, the smart building. You have a lot of solution on this part. But like you said, things are changing. The mindset of the people are changing. It's also maybe due to the fact that when you are an established player, you see all these new solutions arriving, and what's happened in other sectors, like with the mobility, like in the biotech, like I said in the telecom, the market will change. You have no choice. So I think that now all these companies strongly understand that they need to change the business model, they need to change some product, they need to change some process, otherwise they will be in trouble. So it will be now or never. Mm-hmm. But again, the time to market is totally different in the construction and in the real estate. And it will continue. If you decide to make a building, you can't do it in 2 days like you do a B2C mobile app for an iPhone and an Android. It's impossible. And if your mobile app doesn't work, you don't care. You remove it from the store. If you build a building, you are responsible for 10 years. So it's more difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can speak from experience. It takes a long time. And indeed, it's the construction part of it, but it's also just the legislative side, the building permit. That's something that we really struggle with here, that we notice. Like in Brussels, getting a building permit, it's 2 years these days. And that also makes it very difficult for small organizations to really get the scaling going quite early. You already just mentioned it. I think we also discussed it a little bit before the recording, but the really thin margins, and that's one element. And then now, since Corona in the last 18 to 24 months, we see a lot of elements happening in the market, supply chain wise, and the impacts of the entire economic side of COVID. And it's actually quite scary, I think, to see what's going on now in the market with the rising prices. How do you see this moving forward? How do you think this is going to be solved?
At the MIPIM, I had not the opportunity to discuss a lot innovation, but I had the opportunity to discuss with a lot of big players from the market, and the feedback definitively is yes, they are in struggle. It's quite difficult when you see the price of all these materials increasing, when you see the problem in logistic. It's become very, very difficult to respect the delay, to respect the financial promises of a project. Some of the companies start to transfer the cost to the end user. Some of these end users accept it, some doesn't accept and decide to stop the project. So yes, it's very tricky for the sectors. Some will disappear, some will survive, and it will not change in the very short term.
You see this continuing on for months and if not years?
Definitely for years.
And there's so much, just at the time when there's so much construction that needs to get done. Just if you look at the innovation demand alone, it's going to be interesting. That's for sure.
Yes, and you have another problem. It's also the shortage of manpower.
Yeah, it's true. How do you start solving that? More automation, right?
That's the buzzword.
Yeah, robots.
No, that's also a buzzword.
Okay.
If you go to a construction site, it's quite difficult when you see a construction site to have robots working on the site, because by definition you have a lot of different places. No, I think that each company will find a solution, but definitively the margin are under pressure, especially for the construction part, maybe less for the real estate, at least in short term. But the main problem is indeed the price of the raw materials and the logistic constraint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like at Bao Living, we have two goals to help making the market more sustainable, but also more affordable. And if you see what's going on now, I don't. It's very difficult to start even to theoretically make a plan in how in the short term we're gonna make it more affordable to build and to live in a home. It's gonna be very challenging, I think. I don't really see any options in the short term.
Co-living is one of the options, but co-living is not for everybody. But yes, it's quite difficult for the moment.
Mm-hmm. We already talked about the sustainability aspect and the affordability of the market and how that's evolving. But do you see any other big challenges today in the market?
We already mentioned it. Like you said, sustainability is a concern, but not only for the sector. That's for the whole sectors. The raw material, it's a concern. It's a problem. But when you mention problem, it's an opportunity. So definitively, we are looking solution tackling this type of problem. There are other problem across the whole value chain. The way of people are using a house, of a building, are changing on the consumer market, but also on the B2B market. Definitively, you need to be able to have more flexibility within a building. That's a new challenge, or at least it's a challenge increasing for the moment.
How do you define the flexibility? Like the ease of redesigning the layout? Is that what you mean with flexibility?
It means that, yes, first, that's the layout, because today we have, for example, on the building aspect, we have a lot of open space, but you should be able to reduce the size of the open space. But maybe then in the future you would like to change this building in apartments. Regarding the housing market, when you are 25 years old, you don't have the same needs than when you are 60 years old. So yes, you need to have flexibility to be able to adapt the building to the use of the user, and not the other way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and today, in the traditional way of doing things, that's very difficult because everything is glued into the structure.
Yeah, absolutely.
If only there was like a smart, adaptable module. Okay, now, okay. Maybe one final question. If you could change one thing in the construction industry today, what would it be?
It's not to change something, because I think that there are already a lot of change happening, but I would like to improve something. There are not enough women in the sector. It's still, when you go on the field, when you have people within meeting, the majority are still men. And like I said, I came from other sectors. It was not the case. So definitively, you should have much more women in the sector, because they bring another way of working. They bring another vision. It's another type of added value. And definitively, it will improve the way of the sector is working. So it's the sector that should try to be more attractive and convince women to start to work on this sector, because it's a beautiful sector. There are a lot of opportunities. There are a lot of careers. But yes, if I can improve something, it will be that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I fully agree. We are still a very small team, but our site manager, she's a woman. So she's now managing the site in Brussels with 20 flats, and there's also, as you mentioned, you get another perspective, but it can also be a benefit. Like she notices it every day. Like she needs to manage all these different parties, and in the beginning it's a little bit uncertain, but it also definitely has its benefits, and she mentions it a lot. But I find it fascinating why it's the case. Do you have any idea why the women are so underrepresented in this market?
No, maybe due to the fact that on the labor side, it's quite intensive. But again, you could have it. No, you should ask to some women why they are not interested or attracted by the sector. But again, things are changing. It takes time. Sorry, but you see much more women today than 5 years ago, and I hope that in the future, the number of women working on the sector will continue to increase.
Yeah, fully agree. All right. To finish off, we always have like a couple of more personal questions, less related to the construction market. So, if you would not be working in the construction industry right now, and you wouldn't be starting the Rise PropTech Fund, if you would be doing something totally different, any idea what it would be?
I will be a professional fund boarder or kiteboarder.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was a long time ago.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I had an accident in kitesurf, so I decided to stop it. But if we could change it, I will do it.
Yeah, that looks like so much fun. Like you're flying at times, eh?
Yeah. And it's not so difficult, at least at the beginning. It's much more easier. But like I said, also the fun board part.
Okay.
So small windsurf.
That's a small windsurf.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Now it seems that we are again in the lower part of the COVID pandemic, and traveling is possible again. If you could make a recommendation to the listeners where they should go, do you have like a favorite destination that you can advise?
I will not mention it, otherwise everybody will go there.
That's true. Okay, good answer. All right. Jérôme, once again, thank you very much for making time in your busy schedule to have this conversation with us. I think it was very interesting to learn more about Rise PropTech Fund and how you're looking at the market. And it's the very early beginning now, but I think I can speak for the entire team at Bao Living, and hopefully also for our listeners, that we're very curious to see where it's going to go in the near future, and possibly also in the longer future as well. So thank you very much, and hopefully we can have this conversation again in a couple of months or years.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and if you are a startup, feel free to contact us. We will analyze your slide deck, and we will contact you if we are interested.
Good point. That's something we should always ask. If people are interested, where should they go to?
Just to go to our website, riseproptech.eu, and you have a very light contact form, and then we always answer within 48 hours.
Okay, and you're mostly looking for startups now, and also still for investors, both?
Alors, we are looking definitively startups, like we mentioned at the beginning, late seed and Series A's, especially based in the Benelux, Dutch area, and France. But of course, if you are in other countries, we'll always look if there is a potential match. And regarding the investor, yes, of course, we are still open to discuss with potential investor, but we are really looking for investor coming from the sector. Mm-hmm. That's the added value we want to continue to bring, and that's the differentiator of our fund.
Okay, so ticket size for startups up to 2-3 million?
So we start at 500K up to 1.5, but we can do multiple rounds, okay. And our LPs have the availability to make a co-investment with us if it's needed.
Okay. And fund do you have a closing date?
Yes, it's a fund on 10 years, but the objective is really to make the investment in the next 3 to 5 years.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Bao Podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to subscribe to our channel. If you're interested in Bao Living and our Smart Adaptable Module or SAM, go check out our website, baoliving.com. If you want to stay up to date, you can best subscribe to our monthly newsletter on our website or follow us on all social media platforms where we're named @Bao Living.